Welcome back, everyone. We are live again with my amazing interviews with amazing people. So we are with Aleks, and some of you may have met her before, and she is a regular on the show, and she does this amazing thing called astrology. And what's really great about that is that, yes, it keeps us up to date with these current current vibes and what's going on and what the planets are doing and all the rest of it, but also there's much more to it. So we wanted to delve a little bit deeper with Aleks today. So welcome, Aleks, again. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Davina? Kate? So lovely to be here.
Oh, I know the world seems to be in a lot of there's a lot of moving pieces, isn't there, happening right now?
There are a lot of moving pieces, and that's why it's so important for us to take a moment and be, internal, to go inside.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what what I was interested in, thought, that we discussed just before the show, was a really interesting topic, actually, and it was kind of based on why, the astrology and spirituality, why have royals and kings and queens relied on astrology? What's its purpose? And I thought it'd be great if we could delve into that today, and cover that.
Yeah, I mean, astrology, it's much older than than like printed magazines, right? It's much older than the horoscopes. And for thousands of years in many cultures across the world, astrology was used by royalty. It was used in temples. It was used by people in power. And there's actually two different reasons for it. And so the original nature of astrology, especially according to the Hellenistic tradition, which was the tradition of the Greek mystery schools, there were two main branches. And so the first branch was forecasting. And so a lot of what you and I have talked about, Davina and Kate, on, as we've chatted the past few times, has been in the area of forecasting. And so what are the cycles that are happening? What do these cycles promote? How do we relate to them? How do they show up in our lives? Right. And so many, kings and queens throughout the ages have had astrologers because they wanted to know, because astrology has an effect on everything from the weather, right, which would dictate, crops and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But also it had a strong impact on relationships between countries, and promoting either peaceful atmospheres or warlike atmospheres, and what have you. And so they would always consult with an astrologer so that they understood the energetic background that they were operating in, and how they could best navigate it. But then there was also another piece of astrology. And the second main branch in the Hellenistic tradition is called theurgy.
Mm.
And theurgy literally means the work of God. And in astrology, essentially what I could translate that to is the work of becoming like God. And that's where the birth charts come in.
See, that's so interesting, isn't it? Because I know, like we see, forecasting has always been, quite modern and quite popular. And I always wondered, why it had become so, popular. But kind of like the birth charts and what have you. I know in some traditions are very popular, but then in other traditions and cultures, not really heard about. Certainly in the UK, I've heard stories of, kings and queens not going into war because their advisors told them that it wouldn't be a good day to go on, or this would be a good day to go on, and so they were doing all that with using the planets, were they?
Absolutely. I mean, Queen Elizabeth of the Tudor, dynasty was perhaps the most famous of royals who consulted with astrologers. But she's not the only one. Oh my goodness, I'm trying to remember the name of the U.S. president.
The current.
No, not the current one. No, not Biden. But many years ago, it was Eleanor Roosevelt who actually, came under fire a lot because she would consult with astrologers. And why people, gave her flack for it, I really don't know. It was a wise thing to do. To be able to understand the human condition that you are operating in so that you can wisely navigate it. I don't see why you should give anyone trouble for that.
Interesting, isn't it, that somebody as powerful as Queen Elizabeth I, who's, and probably ruled most of the, the world of that time, that time, and then fast forward just a few years later, really, and another woman's getting, kind of mocked for doing the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny, isn't it? She was obviously, using the hidden sciences and using the science, of the planet to actually, navigate her decisions and what have you. She was a very clever woman.
Oh, I totally agree. And the thing is, these are some more recent examples because an even more famous example would actually be Alexander the Great.
Oh. Okay.
And of course, Alexander the Great, the king of Macedonia, a few thousand years ago, he was actually trained in the mystery school traditions. So he was trained in the Greek mystery schools. His tutor was actually Aristotle, right? And astrology was a really big part of his education. And so, of course, and it's kind of funny because even in his travels, Alexander the Great was known to carry the works of Aristotle with him. So Alexander the Great's father, Philip of Macedon, actually hired Aristotle to be Alexander's tutor. Right. And so, as Alexander got older and of course went into war, he always carried those works with him, to keep the words of his mentor, at his side. But one of the things that Aristotle had been very big on was actually making sure that he had a proper chart casted. And, and Alexander the Great is somebody who very much closely worked with the aspect of theurgy in astrology, right? And so working with Aristotle and one of Aristotle's philosophies, I guess you could say, or one of his key teachings is to actually embrace and perfect your nature. And that's why you get a chart done. That's why you get a birth chart done. You want to understand and embrace your nature. And in fact, one of the things that Aristotle said is that the perfect human is the one who is merged, with the dignities of his planet, right? So every one of us has those planetary aspects that we can work with, and as we grow in and embrace in it, that is when we really see success. And Alexander the Great was really diligent in that work, and that's how he ended up doing what he did. He was brilliant because he truly embraced the highest aspects of his nature.
Isn't that amazing? And obviously being mystery school trained and, as we are, that is, our daily, hourly, secondly, every minute of the day, we are trying to be or edging closer to, that higher self, or, some people, want to, we have different terminologies, but really eliminating that negative ego, really wanting to reach our full potential, really expanding ourselves so that we can actually go beyond our current limitations, whatever we've set. So when we bring in astrology and we bring in these charts, and you're saying that we can then look at those areas that we can expand even more or understand ourselves, and it kind of, does it kind of stop that trial and error. You know, not so much trial and error of like, oh, you know, this, I could be really good at this. Whereas if you get a chart, you go, oh, okay, well, I know that there's a good chance that I'm going to excel in this area or whatever it is.
Well, there's a little bit of that, but you know, if I can kind of summarize what you said there, Alice Bailey talks about what's called the dual work of the initiate, and astrology is really big in this. And the dual work of the initiate is the simultaneous accomplishment of two things. So the first is the there we go. The first is the minimization of the negative ego, right? And then the second is embracing the higher self. And we're trying to do this simultaneously. And one of the trappings of the initiate and in the trappings of modern day spirituality is that we're just trying to do this all the time. We're just trying to minimize the negative ego. And we're not really stepping into the powers, the abilities, the qualities that are part of the essence of good within us. Right? And so this is why mystery school training is actually so important, because you could, you know, just minimizing your negative ego is actually a trap. You could spend the rest of your life, you know, oh my God, I had a negative thought, right? And get caught in that. Whereas when you're working with the teachings in the mystery school, that is you embracing your magical connection, right? That is you growing and expanding through magic. Many astrologers were not just astrologers. They didn't just sit there and tell you what to do or who you are. Actually, there's very few astrologers who did only that. And so in modern days, we've kind of many astrologers have fallen away from the original nature of astrology, because astrology is very closely tied to Hermetic magic. And so through the use of ritual and ceremony and the essences of the planets that are contained in herbs, in oils, you know, in colors and metals and alchemy, in you know, in the universal Kabbalah, you know, through all of these, we are able to start to make greater contact and to refine our nature.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we talk about royals that have used this in the past, and we see a lot of that ceremony, and we see a lot of those rituals. It is still now, you know, obviously in the UK, we still have a royal family, and we see that a lot. So some of that could have come from the Hermetic tradition and the astrology and all of that kind of influence, could it, Aleks?
Absolutely. You know, a good magician like back in the medieval times, a good magician was an astrologer. But an astrologer was also a magician.
Yeah.
Right? They were one and the same, because we needed to understand the essence of the heavens above us. And that is actually part of what astrology teaches us. It helps us to understand the hierarchy of light. Mm-hmm. And our connection to it, and the I guess you could say the groupings and the energies within that hierarchy that we brought down with us when we were born into this physical world.
That is so cool. So when we can look at astrology from that perspective of, oh, let's have a look at what's going to happen tomorrow. But what we're saying is that, wouldn't it be even more powerful, especially as magicians, especially as people that practice in, lineage, mystery school lineage, that if we take that information, then we can get to know God, get to know the universe, whatever terminology you want to say, get to know ourselves, to know thyself, even more so than not having an understanding of it.
Absolutely. It's again the main purpose of theurgy, the work of God, is to know oneself as God, and to know one's godly essence, and that is perhaps the deepest aspect that astrology has to teach, and it opens the doors to that for you. And through time, it can become deeper and deeper, and that's the beauty of it.
And I think this is important now, Aleks, because in a world where there is becoming less and less that is in our control. So, if we're in a, pandemic, some of us are still in lockdown over here in the UK, and some of us, around the world are having different things, taken away from us, and things that we can do right now. And that could be stressful for people. That can be, having that anxiety of not understanding whether they're going to be going to school or going to work, or all these different types of things are coming up. However, if we flip it, and if we start to take charge and start to concentrate on what we can control, which is walking that path of knowing ourselves, working on eliminating the negative ego, but also expanding and taking that responsibility, then that's going to definitely see a decrease in anxiety. I would have thought.
Do you know when we get stressed? We get stressed when we are trying to be in a way that is contrary to our nature. And for a lot of people who are in a position where a lot of things have been taken away, you know what? Use it. Use that time, because the minute you engage those things, you're going to be so focused on what is external to you that it will be very easy to forget what your nature is, or to not be able to see or perceive. Right? And so for those of you who are kind of stuck at home, this is your time to get to know yourself. This is the time to get to know your nature, and to actually start being more in alignment with it. Are you someone who needs movement? Okay, get out and move. Right? And that could be as simple as doing some of those YouTube workouts at home, or going for a walk, or what have you. Are you someone who needs social interaction? Okay, well, you know what? You're not completely blocked from it, right? Are you someone who thrives on creativity? Well, shoot, having a lot of time and space, I mean, let that creativity just soar, fly, express itself, right? So this is what astrology helps you to tune into. It helps give you a more, I guess you could say, definite perspective on your nature that otherwise sometimes you have to rely on self-observation for. Right? But self-observation is an amazing tool too.
Yeah, I can see, how it could really aid. So tell us back, let's have a look at some of the the figures in history. We talk about Alexander the Great and Queen Elizabeth. What type of, how would they have consulted their astrologer? What would have been the process, and how would that have worked?
Well, the thing is, many royals, they actually guarded their chart very closely. And the interesting thing is that it's actually said that the downfall of Alexander the Great was actually linked to the fact that evil magicians may have actually gotten hold of his chart.
Really? Okay.
They got to know his essence, right? So many royals had a personal astrologer. And so basically what they would do is, that astrologer always had their birth information, always knew their chart, right? And astrologers were constantly observing the skies and seeing what was going on. And so, basically, like Queen Elizabeth I and Alexander the Great, all they had to do was summon the astrologer and ask the question. It's not quite like that nowadays, but your birth information is so important, right? Because you need to know how your essence is mixing with what's happening.
And so would they have, you know, we've touched on this before, but would they have then been matched with suitable partners based on these charts, you know, in days gone by?
Well, that is certainly a possibility. You know, I'm also not going to neglect the role of politics and things either.
Yeah.
Right? Lands were created and formed out of marriages. You know, wars were ended, wars were started. Ellen of Troy, right? So there is that possibility, but you know, there was also you know, the political importance of marriage as well that perhaps overrode some of the astrological importance at times.
Yeah, you know, you can imagine if you were like wanting to marry the king, you'd have to just like get to know the chart, and then make sure your chart fit in, like kind of, you know. So with the charts that we have in the modern day, we are not ruling a country, but we are ruling our own Camelot, and that is what we. You know, especially as Kabbalists, especially as initiates, we are creating our own kingdom, and everybody in our kingdom, you know, is safe and well, and we're looking after them and supporting them in many different ways. We are the king and queen of our, you know, of our, you know, our kingdom, our community. So, you know, in essence, having, you know, this birth chart would then assist us to create that kingdom or Camelot.
Absolutely. And you know, in the mystery school tradition, every one of us is royalty, right? Seeking to regain our crown. And astrology helps you with that, right? Because you know, if you've ever read like some of the stereotypical descriptions of your zodiac sign or your sun sign, you know, they're not all positive. Right? You know, like you and I communicate, we're Geminis, right? So we're supposed to be two-faced.
The best, I think it says, not two-faced. I think it says.
Oh, we're the best, yeah. You know, but there are some negative associations with every sign, right? You know, I know a lot of Scorpios, and when they tell people that they're a Scorpio, it's like everyone is like, whoo, like back off, you know, right? So the thing is, astrology helps us refine that nature, because yes, there are negative behaviors that are associated with certain qualities. But when you turn that around, when you transmute that, it doesn't have to be negative anymore. You know, in the universe itself, astrology is all positive. And then we come here and we get positive and negative, right? And so when we understand the original essence and the original vibration and the original spirit of who we are, it is so much easier to be the good. It is just so much easier. And instead of like blindly trying to fiddle your way around and go, oh, I think I'm like this, right? This helps give a directed course and a path that you can follow.
Yeah, it's a wonderful tool, isn't it? You know, it's a wonderful tool to have access to. I really love that, and I love it because, you know, we often think of astrology as this forecasting thing, or, you know, the moon, or let's, you know, or retrograde, quick, let's all not send an email or whatever. But, you know, it is so much more. It's so much more, and it has been used, you know, in our history for, you know, to create miracles and to create huge success. And so why wouldn't we, in the modern day world, use that to create our own success? You know, it's kind of like, you know, these interviews have all been, you know, me interviewing amazing people that have created success using ancient tools in their modern day life. And, you know, astrology is one of those tools. It's not just for, you know, looking at, you know, what the future might bring, or what have you. And I think that's a really important piece that, you know, we've perhaps missed. So thank you so much for bringing that to light. And I know that, you can do these charts and these birth charts and what have you. And it's such a gift. I know many people have. So hopefully some more people will be able to, have access to that, and, they'll be able to contact you.
Yeah, and get some of that alchemical refinement. It's how I got, it's a big part of how I got to where I am. Astrology helped me understand, and then it was in using, the tools of the mystery school that gave me the method. Having a little bit of medical background, astrology was my treatment plan, and then the mystery school teachings were the treatment.
Yeah.
Right. And so it helped me to understand what needed to be done. And it gave me clarity about the kind of results and the kind of person I could be. And when you can finally see that potential in yourself, there's so much excitement to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think we need that in these times. So, let's go forth and create even bigger and more amazing Camelots than we already have. Thank you so much for sharing your insight. And if anybody wants to get in touch with Aleks, please, you can email her. I'll put her Facebook page, or should I put your website?
You can do the website. Yeah, that would be the best way to get in contact with me.
Perfect. And watch out for all the amazing information that Aleks shares with us over the next few months. And thank you very much, everyone. And we'll see you soon. Thanks, Aleks.
Thank you.